Welcome. This is a magic day. First, we have to thank the troublemakers. I think you can all be seated. I'm going to ask you to stand later. So my name is Mark Ratner. I'm the acting dean. In 10 days, I'm going to be an emeritus professor of chemistry, but I've been in this fantastic office with these fantastic people on the staff, on the faculty, and amongst the students. And it's been a remarkable trip. I think before we start, you just sat down. I'm going to ask you to stand up again, turn around, and wave your hats and clap your hands for the parents, the siblings, the friends, the neighbors, the relatives. They're here to celebrate you, and I think they've come a long way. They've worked a long time. They probably knew you when you were little and misbehaved. So I think, can you all rise and turn around and applaud them? Okay, now we're going to turn it around. You guys can sit down. And all the people there under Otto Graham, can you please stand up and applaud these graduates who've made it through Northwestern? So everybody likes to talk about themselves. I'll talk about myself for a second. Who am I? I've been at Northwestern for more years than I care to count. I'm a Midwesterner. I was born in Cleveland in 1942. You can do the arithmetic. Excellent. We won't talk about the Cavs. I was an undergrad at Harvard for 4 years, and I came to Northwestern as a PhD student in 1964. Now, my family is in the real estate business, and so sometimes I look at the world in terms of real estate. And when I came here as a graduate student, my office was in the basement of tech. Not only in the basement of tech, it was in the room in the basement of tech where the windows had been sealed, right? So there was very little light. The electricity was sort of, right? And that was a kind of real estate. So I finished my PhD and went off to Germany and Denmark, and then eventually wound up in New York at NYU. And now New York real estate is very expensive. So I had another one of these little offices, but this time I could open the windows. I was making real progress. Then Northwestern called back, and I came back here in 1974. Now I was an associate professor with tenure, and I was in the basement with sealed windows again. And this was a really good thing, because right across from my office, there was a stairway that went up, and a very enterprising young graduate student had actually built himself a little house under there. He brought in a little cooker, and he came in with bottles of water, and he lived under those stairs for about 7 weeks before people found him out. So the real estate was really bad, and then all of a sudden, it was better. They moved me up to the first floor in a converted closet. So that was good, but there was no window, and I had no idea what was going on outside. In 1982, they put me in a real office with a real window that opened. That was good. In 2001, Ryan Hall opened. Now, those of you who haven't been in Ryan Hall, it's the Nano building. It's to the southeast of Tech. And it was the first, actually, in a string of beautiful buildings that the powers that be at Northwestern have constructed for us, for the students and for the faculty. And in order to make up, I think, for all the other stuff that had been happening, I get this palatial hall as my office, right? I mean, there's room to play basketball in there. And for a while, I had a view of the lake. All right, I'm going to stop with the real estate, except for one thing. Right now, my office is in the dean's office, and it's a converted garage. And it's the most beautiful office on campus. I invite you all to come visit me in the last 11 days of my tenure, because it tells you something about the history of Northwestern. This little building that we're in was actually the home of the president when he was John Snyder. And it's converted garage. And garage is a good word around here this week because we have just started a fabulous idea based on 1871, which is a Chicago sort of building place for high tech. This is Northwestern's version of that, and if you haven't been in it, you really should. It is in a garage, and it's called the garage, but it's just an empty space for students who want to start businesses, students who want to explore. Okay, I'm a theoretical scientist. I'm a theoretical chemist, actually. There aren't very many of us. And I'm a scientist in Weinberg College, and I've been thinking a lot about the future, about the outcomes that lie ahead for me, and you have certainly been doing the same thing. I'm continuously reminded of the past, the wonderful experiences I've had, the outstanding people I've met here at Northwestern and in Weinberg. I just want to say a few words about the future, a few about the past, about certain things that are important to me and I hope are important to you. One of the things that I'm proudest of is something called Eisen, I-S-E-N. Shake your head if you've heard of Eisen. Okay. I could ask you what it is, but it's short for Initiative for Sustainability and Energy at Northwestern, and it was started by students. When Henry Beanan was president, a bunch of students went to him and said, all of our friends at places like Yale have initiatives in trying to do something about the fact that we're destroying the environment. And we don't have that at Northwestern. And Henry, being a fantastic and wonderful president, called two people, and I was one of them, and said, I'm going to give you a bunch of money, and you're going to make this happen. That was in 2007. It has really grown because it's about what I believe is the most important place where technology meets society. It's the air we breathe, it's the water we drink. It's what we see when we wake up every morning, and it's the stars that we look at night. It's the kind of life we would like our children to have. I go back a long way in this ecology thing. When I was a kid, my parents had a summer house east of Cleveland on Lake Erie. And none of my friends were allowed to swim in the lake, right? Because it was sufficiently nasty that their parents thought they would come back with something. At one point when I was a kid, I found this pile of oil and stuff on the beach. It probably weighed about 4 pounds. I came down, put it in a box, took it home, wrapped it, sent it to the president of Standard Oil. I never heard from him. But that's the way we were treating our environment then, and in some ways that's how we're treating our environment now. And so Eisen is there to take the wisdom and the hard work of the Northwestern students and match that up against what the world has. So we've done a lot. We've planted gardens, we've installed photovoltaic devices on roofs, we've sent kids to Honduras to figure out how to bring clean, safe water to cities there. We even created sustainable backdrops for the productions in the theater department. We've raised awareness here at Northwestern. I don't think there's been anything more important than taking whatever steps we can to make our planet sustainable and hospitable for your children and their children. When I think about the past, as I've already mentioned, my name is drawn back to the many professional and personal friendships I've made during my years at Northwestern, as a student, as a faculty member, and as a dreaded administrator. You're supposed to learn from your peers. I know one of them. Her name's Anna Renich, and she is a former ASG academic vice president. And she called me up, and we've gone out to lunch 3 or 4 times. She's told me about some things that I didn't know. For example, you come to Northwestern as a freshman, and you know that you're going to be paying $48,000 in tuition, a gaga sum. But what you don't know is, well, if you're going to take chemistry and economics, which are the 2 huge departments, you're going to wind up spending $340 on your books, right? And who's going to pay for that? Who's going to pay for that? Where's that $340 going to come from? And if you want to get into the Greek system, it's going to cost you a little more than that. And where's that money going to come from? So there are still many, many things to do. I've been here since 1974 on the faculty. I've seen 3 amazingly wonderful presidents in very, very different guise. I think that Northwestern is on a rocket ship. We are terrific and getting better. But this has to be cured by working hard. College is a time of transformation and transition, and Northwestern has been a great home for me, and I hope it has been for you who are graduating. Our years here on Lake Michigan have shaped us. They've helped us to understand who we are and what we stand for in the world. In college, we learn what matters to us, what we are willing to work for, and sometimes even fight for. Much of this learning and transformation is forged through the relationships we develop with others. On the subject of the environment, by the way, the Pope had an encyclical earlier this week. You should read this. You should read this. Okay, I want to talk about one more thing. That has to do with friendship. Like any valuable resource, friendships require ongoing investment in terms of time, attention, and care. We have to work hard at cultivating relationships with other people, especially those with whom we're closest, because sometimes it's easiest to take these relationships for granted. We should be able to depend on our closest friends to be honest and authentic with us, to tell us when we make mistakes. Our best friends, like family, are always available to us to celebrate our successes and commiserate when things start going badly. Our friends make us better people. Our lives become richer and fuller from the experience of finding and enjoying community with others. And your Northwestern brand is going to make that very much easier and very enjoyable. Let me give you 2 examples of my own. When I was a freshman, I wandered into the dorm, and the person who was my roommate had put all his clothes in there, and I didn't understand what these clothes were. Turns out most of them were clothes for what were called coming out parties. His name is Charles Lyman. He's my best friend even now. This was a long time ago, 52 years ago. What can I say? He's a Bostonian. His great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents came over on the Mayflower, and he became a professional photographer. That's one friendship. Another one, which is very new, has to do with 2 people who are donors to Northwestern. So when you're a dean, you have to look at a lot of paper, but one of the things you get to do is fly around the country and speak to Northwestern graduates. It's called fundraising, and I thought it was nasty. And it's not nasty, it's wonderful. You should all try it. The first thing was in Washington, and I had to see one person during the day and meet one person in the evening. The person during the day was a guy named Steve Kwame, who's a builder. He's in his mid-40s. And I said to him, "What are your links to Northwestern?" And he pointed to his desk. And on his desk, there were 2 framed pictures. One was him and George Bush. The other was him with 4 men. Looked like they were on a golf course. And he said, "Those 4 guys were my friends at Northwestern. We're in our 50s now, and we're going to be close forever. We vacation together, we go fishing together, we scream at each other." I did not take advantage of my undergraduate friends as much as I should have, and I hope you do. Late that afternoon, I was told, you're supposed to meet a woman who's coming for the party, for the dinner. And I said, "Do I know her?" And they said, "Well, we think you know her." And I said, "What's her name?" And they said, "Christine Lavelle." And I thought, oh yeah, I remember her. So I'm sitting on this bench, and Washington, D.C. has this patented rain that doesn't rain. It's just dripping. So I'm getting wetter and wetter and wetter, looking around, where is this person? And suddenly I see this tall woman coming toward me, more purple than you, which is impossible, right? But I think she even had purple shoes on. And it's raining, and I stand up, and I look at her, and I wave. She puts her hands out like this and runs at me, because I remember her as an undergraduate. That's the way Northwestern is. And that's the advantage that you guys are going to have as you go out into the world. What's next for us after Northwestern? Well, it's my hope that you will continue to stay close to your friends. You have to. Continue to invest in the relationships you've built here during your years. This includes your friendships with students, but also with faculty members. We love to find out what our students are doing. When you've worked and laughed and argued with a faculty member, don't let it drop. Our greatest hope is that we've got something that we've given you, something academic, something thoughtful, something mature. We may have helped make you more tolerant, more thoughtful, and more compassionate. I'll tell you one more story. So I teach in the chemistry department. And about 15 years ago, this young woman named Emily Weiss came in and said, I want to do my PhD with you. Turns out she also comes from Cleveland. Well, she did reasonably well. She had joint mentors, me and Mike Wasilewski. She did experiments, she did computations, she went off to Harvard, did a postdoc with George Whitesides, looked around for a job, and we scooped her up. She's now a full professor of chemistry and is changing the undergraduate curriculum in the department and is forging very new paths in systematically looking at photochemistry at very, very short times. That's a Northwestern connection. They're all that good. Not quite all that good, but you will hear from us. As alumni, you will stay in close contact with the college and university through our Alumni Association. I hope you'll volunteer some of your time and resources to help our students prepare for the important transition that you are making today. We need you to help us remain the great college that we've become. Northwestern has one of the largest alumni networks in the world, and this network can be an invaluable resource for you when you move to Hong Kong or any place else. Please be sure to take advantage of it. I haven't quoted anybody, so I have to do a Shakespeare quote. This is Polonius, who's a nasty actor, right? And he's talking to Hamlet, and he says, "The friends thou hast with their adoption tried, grapple them unto thy soul with hoops of steel." I don't recommend you use hoops of steel, but try to keep in touch with your friends. It becomes really important as time goes on. I'm looking forward to the next phase of my life. I'm formally retiring at the end of this month. I have a great deal of excitement and a lot of trepidation. Old habits die hard. Change is challenging because it requires us to give up part of who we have been and become part of something else. You and I will need courage to confront our uncertain futures and resilience to recover from unanticipated setbacks. Most important of all, we should and must continually remind ourselves to remain open to those new opportunities that present themselves, uninvited, at our doorsteps. We must always entertain the possibility that we can reinvent ourselves, taking along the best that we have and going to it and adding to it the best that we can become. Last quote from Johann Wolfgang Goethe. I won't give you the German, but the translation is, "We do not travel to arrive, but for the travel itself." I hope that you, as I do, look forward to this journey. Thank you.